Welcome to the bold analysis, ladies and gentlemen. The Nation is reporting of a Friday night meeting between three gentlemen, Raila Odinga, the former Nigerian President Obasanjo, and William Samoei Ruto, a closed-door meeting that lasted for more than 8 hours, after which the move to have the new phase of dialogue was actually agreed. Remember, this is after William Ruto announced that he was ready and he was planning to meet Raila Odinga. And I totally want to agree with those leaders who say that clearly there must be a compromise. My position is this, and this one I'll have to defend. The number of people that died and how people were killed during protest was a red flag that if the situation was going to escalate, then they were going to engage in more blame games. And with the ethnic profiling, probably it was key for Raila Odinga to leave it because William Ruto was unmovable. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't doubt the credentials of Obasanjo in mediating the talks, but clear signals will show you that these 5 ghosts William Ruto has erected in that path, clearly to make sure it collapses, and this time round, it is just supposed to collapse for other reasons. And I can say that Kenya Kwanza is playing picky ponky with the Kenyans on this matter, because I have seen people looking at it differently. Ruto is playing Raila. But I don't want to agree with that, because let me tell you, clearly there is a high possibility that Raila may not be harboring any other political ambition in future. He may not harbor those ambitions. And so if you sit there thinking that Ruto is playing Raila, then you're wrong. The person who's being played here is Mwananchi. And there is 6 ghosts that will show you that this thing is deemed to fail on William Ruto's side, because of William Ruto's side. I think Raila was very intentional, and you will agree with me. Raila was very intentional. The videos of the heartbreaking videos from Luo Nyanza on how our people, nothing wrong saying that, were killed, shot, are really heartbreaking. And I know he was pushed that whichever way, he had to stop the protest. These are 6 ghosts. The first one is propaganda. Oh my goodness. I sympathize with Obasanjo that the Kenya Kwanza administration have an ending appetite for propaganda. Immediately, yesterday, and I wanted to look at this, yesterday there were 2 statements. There was one statement that was released by Azimio la Umoja, and it was signed by Opiyo Wandayi. Then after that, there was another statement that was released by Kimani Ichung'wah. And immediately it was picked, it was released, all the Kenya Kwanza bloggers picked a narrative because intentionally they left out the cost of living. What was to be discussed there was framed as IBC, 2/3 gender rule, making of the position of the opposition leader, and I don't know, the 4th one was maandamano victims. And intentionally, the cost of living was left out. And then throughout the Saturday night, what was trending was government pushing Azimio to the wall to explain why the cost of living is not there. And so it's supposed to make it look like the cost of living was never part of what to be discussed. So that was a propaganda that was already created to frame the mind of, gratify the mind of the population, because what exactly are the population, what is exactly going to the interest of the population? I want to believe it had not even, they had not even met to discuss on which grounds, but the government side ran with that propaganda. This is what I'm saying. It is very possible that probably during Raila and Ruto meeting, they agreed that the cost of living was going to be handled differently, even is within the dialogue, but differently, or under the discussion about finance bill. It is very possible. But Ruto himself planted his propaganda team to already dent the credibility and the image of that engagement. And let me pause for a minute. If government thinks that they have a score, they have scored simply because of not including the cost of living in the dialogue, and so they believe it is a win, then it's a very dangerous trap for them. The cost of living was never about Raila and Ruto, and was never about Raila and the leaders. The cost of living, according to me, was something that the opposition was reminding government. So even if you don't solve it through the bipartisan talks, it's not somewhere there. Even if it's not handled there, Kenyans will just catch up with you. You know, it's very easy because you honestly don't need Raila Odinga to address the cost of living. That's the truth. You honestly don't need the opposition to address the cost of living if the Kenya Kwanza has already put up their plan and they cannot be changed. Azimio has been insisting for long that bring back the subsidies so that you can ease the burden on the population. But government has stuck with the recommendations from the IMF and World Bank that the subsidies are not going to be implemented back, to be returned back. So that has been it. I don't know what else is needed. And government have said they're not going to the issues of subsidies. So there's that which probably were left out in that meeting. Maybe that one of them was the server and the cost of living. And if someone really thinks that the cost of living should not be addressed because I never talked about it, then I'm telling you, you're sleeping in your own grave. Second ghost is Kimani Ichung'wah. Ladies and gentlemen, Kimani Ichung'wah is the leader of the majority. And according to that agreement, he was allowed in to be part of the panel. The initial panel that was formed, the Kimani Ichung'wahs were not in it. Now in this one, William Ruto has allowed Kimani Ichung'wah. And I am looking at him as a ghost there because Kimani Ichung'wah is going to represent Rigathi Gachagua. And Rigathi Gachagua has come out in public and has been found in videos saying the way William Ruto should not talk to Raila Odinga, and he will be standing around the State House to ensure no one meets William Ruto without his consent, and has defamed, or rather has also profiled Raila Odinga as the leader of a criminal gang that should not meet with their government. And then there is Kimani Ichung'wah there. These are saboteurs because their only interest is not on how William Ruto going to make it, but on how Raila Odinga can continue to be persona non grata in the Mount Kenya context. And that is why there are analysts that have always believed that in any case of a talk, then Rigathi Gachagua and Kimani Ichung'wah are going to find a trough. And but then let me tell you, they probably don't even have a problem with Raila. The level of hate the level at which they hate Ruto, Raila and Uhuru Kenyatta is another level. Now, what they're simply saying is, this is a situation where Raila, Uhuru, and Ruto might be speaking sort of some same language. Then you know, by any chance, that Ruto is going to tone down attacks on the first family, then the politics of Kimani Chungwa, Moses Kuria and the rest is done. So that is why they are also the other ghost that is out to saboteur, because they know very well that this kind of arrangement is going to fragment the Mount Kenya support, the kind of Mount Kenya support they get, and what has been their tool of consolidating political support in Mount Kenya. That tool is not going to be more potent and more active, because part of the agreement would be, and they will see William Ruto going, retracting and not attacking Uhuru Kenyatta. I think he had even stopped until the protest came up. That's number one. Number two, money. I want to say for the record, if I have seen the membership of that Obasanjo Commission, if the Obasanjo Commission is going to be funded by our taxpayers' money here, by a budget from State House, a budget from Parliament, or a budget from Treasury or somewhere, and the government is going to foot the bills for Obasanjo, then I tell you, they will demand Obasanjo, they will demand to remote control Obasanjo Commission. Yes. If they're the ones paying his ticket, paying his hotel, paying his allowance, paying him everything, if he's being paid and he's not been sent by UN or some African trachea or African Union, if Obasanjo was called in the country with Raila and Ruto, then I'm telling you, and they're the ones that are going to finance that commission, I'm afraid, and I can tell Obasanjo straight in the eye, I wish I understand Nigeria, I will say he's not going to make it. Because that money that government is going to pump in it, they're going to ensure that they serve their interest at every level of that discussion. Every level of that dialogue is going to be. I wish they'll even make it clear that it's going to be funded by some other well-wishers outside the country, so that no one has a monopoly of what is going on there. It is one of the challenges that is there. Number four, the other ghost in those dialogues is William Ruto's 2027 presidential bid. I have had leaders saying that one thing they expect is Raila to retire from politics. I can say without fear of contradiction, the whole approach of neutralizing protest was not about that protests are destructive. I can tell you. The whole approach of hitting the Luo community during those protests was not that they are the most violent group. It was a plan to disenfranchise and to vanquish Raila Odinga politically by setting him against his base, the voting base. The voting base protested ourselves. We protested that our Luo brothers and sisters and our uncles cannot continue dying as we fight for the soul of the nation. Cannot. And so that is it. I can tell you this commission might come up with very ridiculous positions like, in future, there is no any other protest to be held by the Azimio. Wait for it. Lastly, there is another ghost team known as African Renaissance Team. These are the PLO Lumumba, the Malema, and the team. The continent is watching what's going to happen in Kenya, how it's going to end. And William Ruto now has been a very active Continental player. I'm telling you, he will marshal his friends in the continent to ensure that the dialogue takes a specific direction. I really hope and wish that Obasanjo get through with this. William Ruto, and what I can tell you is bold, William Ruto is not committed, is not interested in that bipartisan talks. The only thing in those the Obasanjo Commission, the only thing William Ruto is interested in is how can I control Raila? How can I remove Raila from the street. It's that simple. He's just finding avenues of removing Raila from the street. As the commission is talking, the government is planning, UDA is planning weekly and daily events, intents, and bashing the opposition over the protest and name calling. So, it's not business as usual. And I'm so sympathetic that we are playing with the old man from Nigeria.